Are you feeling completely trapped in a housing market that just won't give? I mean, for years, it's been the same old story: prices through the roof and absolutely nothing to buy. But what if I told you there's a hidden wave of homes about to crash onto the market, all because of a quiet government policy change most people have no idea about? This is the Brick by Brick channel, where we help beginners build wealth through real estate one brick at a time. It's that constant feeling of frustration, right? You're doing everything you're supposed to be doing. You're saving money, you're building your credit, but it feels like the goalpost just keeps getting moved further and further away. Homeownership starts to feel less like a dream and more like some exclusive club you just can't get into. Well, let's dive in, because the real reason for this ridiculously tight market, it's probably not what you think. And there's this invisible dam that's been holding back a potential flood of houses, and believe me, it is about to break. Okay, so to really get what's coming, we first have to understand the market we're in right now. And it's a market that for years has been defined by one thing above all else: a chronic, painful shortage of homes for sale. Yeah, this has been the big mystery, hasn't it? With so many people wanting to buy, where in the world are all the houses? Well, the answer isn't really about interest rates or construction. Nope. It lies with a quiet government program that's been propping everything up from behind the scenes. So, how did this happen? Well, we're talking about the Federal Housing Administration, the FHA. See, during a period of a lot of economic uncertainty, they put a policy in place that basically hit the pause button on the foreclosure process for hundreds of thousands of homeowners, keeping all those properties off the market. And the main tool they used was this thing called a partial claim. It's actually pretty straightforward. If a homeowner with an FHA loan got behind on their payments, the FHA would just step in, pay the bank what was owed, and then tack that debt onto the end of the loan as a second interest-free lien. It was a lifeline for a lot of people. And the scale of this program, it was just staggering. On average, the FHA was processing around 30,000 of these partial claims every single month. That's 30,000 properties a month that were in distress, but were kept completely out of the foreclosure pipeline and away from you and me on the retail market. And as mortgage check engineer John Kiske points out, this wasn't just about helping homeowners. What it was really doing was artificially pushing down the true number of delinquent loans. It was effectively hiding the real level of distress that was building up inside the FHA's books. But, a system like this couldn't last forever. In October 2025, the FHA quietly changed the rules of the game. And that one little change is the catalyst for everything we are about to see unfold in the housing market. Just look at this comparison, because the difference is like night and day. Before, borrowers could get one partial claim after another, sometimes for years, without making any payments. Now you get one shot every 2 years, and only after you prove you can make 3 payments in a row. That safety net has been yanked away. So for all the homeowners who've been relying on this system just to stay in their homes, this isn't just some small tweak. It's a seismic shift. The easy path to avoiding foreclosure, it's pretty much gone. So what happens when that dam we've been talking about finally breaks? Well, you get a wave of new inventory. And thanks to some expert data analysis, we have a pretty clear picture of just how big that wave could be and exactly when it's going to hit. According to data from John Kiske, we're looking at somewhere between 250,000 and 400,000 FHA loans that have repeatedly used this assistance. These are the households that are now facing these tough new rules, putting them at the highest risk of default. And the timeline for this is already in motion. The policy changed in October 2025. So through the rest of that year and into 2026, those at-risk homeowners are going to be scrambling to qualify under the new rules. For the many who can't, their homes will begin the foreclosure or short sale process, finally hitting the open retail market in mid to late 2026. And here's the key part for you. Unlike other programs where big Wall Street investors swoop in and buy thousands of these loans in bulk, the FHA doesn't usually work that way. These properties are expected to be sold one by one on the open market, where everyday buyers like you and me can actually put in an offer. Look, this isn't just some interesting economic theory. It's a potential window of opportunity for anyone who has felt totally locked out of the market. But like with any major market shift, this wave brings both huge upsides and some very, very serious risks. Preparation is everything. Okay, let's start with the good stuff. First, an injection of all this new inventory could finally put the brakes on these soaring home prices. With more houses to choose from, those frantic bidding wars could cool way down, meaning you'll face less competition. And that gives you more power to negotiate a better deal and get into a home where you can start building some real long-term equity. But we have to be realistic about the risks here, and they are significant. A wave of foreclosures often signals bigger economic trouble, which could impact your job security. If you do buy, there's always a risk prices could fall even further. Banks will probably tighten their lending standards, making mortgages harder to get. And remember, these are distressed properties. A lot of them are going to need costly repairs you have to be ready for. So how do you get ready for both the opportunity and the risk? First, you have to stress test your finances. Your income needs to be stable and your emergency fund needs to be solid. Second, become an absolute expert on your local market, because that's what really matters. Third, shift your mindset to the long term. This is not about flipping. And finally, be disciplined. Don't let the temptation of a deal push you into a decision your future self is going to regret. The housing market has felt impossible for years, but the data is showing that a change is on the horizon. A wave of hidden inventory is projected to arrive in 2026. This isn't just a market shift, it's a test of preparation. And the only question left is, when that tide finally comes in, will you be positioned to ride the wave or will you be washed away?